What's happening, folks? Back with another reaction, back with some more Propagandhi. I wanted to give a big shout out to Jimmy, as well as Lloydie and Ryan, and all the folks who've been following my punk rock reactions since the earliest days and or my earlier channel, meaning I know a couple of you were following my channel when I began to do reactions before YouTube told me that I had to make a new channel. And I remember Ryan in particular, he had been replying to me and commenting on some of my videos. And then as part of the process of my old channel being winded up, if you will, all the comments I'd ever written on my own videos and everyone else's disappeared overnight. And I remember Ryan wrote something like, wait, like all his comments are gone. Do you know what happened? I forget who he was talking to. And I was like, hello, I'm here still, but now I have a new channel. So yeah, shout out to folks who've been with me for that long, as well as others who started following Propagandhi and other punk reactions since then. And we're up to the title track of their 2025 album, At Peace. And side note, I have gotten a CD copy of this, but I figure we'll go through the vinyl as we continue through this brand new album. And thank you again to Michaela, who had sent a donation right at a time when I was looking to get a pre-order copy of this. And yes, At Peace, I feel like there's bound to be some irony or dark underbelly of a phrase that would seem to suggest a serene mentality, the idea of being calm and comfortable. And of course, you can be at peace even as there's chaos, struggle, or conflict around you. But generally speaking, I think people would use that phrase to mean when you are tranquil, when you are calm and accepting of what is occurring, and maybe making a distinction between what you can control and what you can't control. But yes, it seems like an ironic title for the song and album, given the discord, conflict, and bloodshed that is apparently happening on the cover, and given Propagandhi's dissident and scathing commentaries on the forces of brutality and violence in human affairs more generally. Nevertheless, I did notice there are lyrics on the back side of the inner sleeve, which I don't think I realized in the first reaction, which is why I have my cell phone here, so I can use the light so that my poor eyes can see it a bit more easily. Is this? Okay, this is side A. So yes, we will check the lyrics after, though I will of course try to interpret as I can in the moment before we check. But here we go, Propagandhi, At Peace, from the album of the same name, 2025. Not always easy getting the stylus between the tracks.
Hedge every bear, lick every bull, make every appeal. Prostrate yourself to the killing machine, spare yourself from its wheels. Better than that mirror so seductively off your tongue. Your reckoning has begun.
Wolf.
In spite of endless war, restriction, never advance, degradation and plague. Every one of your ancestors survived a reproductive age. The probability that you are even here is next to none. Hey, no pressure, everyone. Wish it got darker, had to face it alone, there'd be no crying for help. Just how wide I've had to figure shit out, hold up by myself. I say this cool is fucked up, should be told it's cost me a few friends. Sometimes you must protect yourself. Fuck around with search for resilient. A power through the waves of disappointment. Maybe not quite thriving, but avoiding. I am at peace these days. Give and take a fit of blinding rage. I can't seem to shake the belief that there's a liminal state between death and rebirth in which you and me reconvene. Oh yes, I'm really fine. Bodies trying to dig up my face with a sharpie. Excuse me, sir, this is an Arby's. I am at peace. I am at peace. Though presently convulsed with grief, I am at peace. Some days I'm scared I'm gonna die, or even worse, I might survive. I try to keep these words in mind. Nothing worth having comes without some kind of fight. Gotta kick at the darkness till it bleeds straight.
Fuck yes. Holy shit. So I won't lie, and indeed, I'm gonna mention a comment from one of the punk rock friends I've come to have through this channel and who is a big Propagandhi fan, but I won't say it by name in case he does not want to be identified by this remark. But he said, you know, this Propagandhi album, he's still sorting through it. It's not quite the Propagandhi album he expected or wanted. And I get that, and I replied to him that, you know, when I first heard Less Talk More Rock, their second album, it was sonically different from How to Clean Everything. And, you know, as someone who was a late teen at the time and who really enjoyed the energetic and wicked sound of the first album, it took me a while to come around on some of the songs. I think there were 2 or 3 songs from Less Talk More Rock that immediately jumped out to me. But there were a few others that it was like, wow, like this is very different, and I don't know if this is what I wanted. But again, I enjoy when bands do that, where, you know, they're allowed to evolve and, you know, make the album that they want. And, you know, some fans may be, oh, well, this isn't exactly the same as before. Well, that's okay, and fair to say, I eventually came around on many of those tunes. So even if it wasn't the album I was expecting, I came to enjoy it a great deal. And I will say, after the first track on the album, I did remember thinking that, like, wow, you know, it's a slower type of sound. I feel like, you know, I wasn't even sure who sung it. I do believe it was Todd on the opening song vocals, Guiding Lights, but not as I had ever heard him sing before. And again, I enjoyed the tune, but I did come away with it like, wow, that was really different. And, you know, it's not the Propagandhi I've known sonically. This track, however, I feel like it absolutely is the Propagandhi I've known for multiple decades, and I absolutely love it. It sounds like it could slot seamlessly onto, say, supporting cast. It reminds me of that tune and just the energy, but also the evolved complexity and melody that Propagandhi had come to have by that time, which incidentally is very evolved from How to Clean Everything. I love that album still to this day. It will always be one of my most nostalgic albums. But I love that they evolved a more melodic and sonically and lyrically complex style than you find on How to Clean Everything. So, yeah, this song to me is very much what I had hoped for, even if Guiding Lights was a bit different than what I expected. And who knows, maybe in due time, Guiding Lights I might enjoy every bit as much as other Propagandhi songs up until this album. Nevertheless, I think this is fantastic. I love the melody. I love the slower and atmospheric opening, and then it launches into a faster song, and we get those like metal-styled guitar chords, because again, ever since I would say maybe Today's Empires, Tomorrow's Ashes, certainly since Potemkin City Limits, Propagandhi has evinced this style that is part hardcore punk rock, part metal, and again, I personally, and I think many folks will agree, have have related that to Todd joining the band, who I think brought a bit more of a metal styling, both vocally and sonically, to the group. But yes, I love the way it launches in and gets more energetic. I love that extension. I do believe this was Chris on vocal. I think you can hear his voice has aged a little bit compared to even albums from 10, 12 years ago, but I think it's identifiably Chris's voice, and that extension he did was absolutely crazy. And yes, lyrically, I love it. It does seem to be this idea that, like, look, I'm older now. It reminds me a bit of Adventures in Zoocosis. This idea that, like, he's still a punk, he still has a punk attitude and ethos, but he's older now, and he recognizes that, you know, you can't change everything, and there may be times where your own attitude, if it's too intense and rigid, or if it's too ideologically sound to the point where it fails to accommodate that, you know, not everyone sees things in the same way and so on, you could end up losing friends over your ethos and your convictions. And his statement that, you know, maybe I have this idea that there's a liminal state between life and death and we might reconvene there, and you know what, I'm actually scared of dying. There's a sense of humanity that maybe exceeds whatever his political or philosophical views are, that, like, he's a human and he, like many other humans before him, is scared to die, or maybe even more scared that he might not die. And the idea that, you know, if there are immaterial eternal souls, maybe that would be even more terrifying to the fact that we might one day die as our physical bodies cease to function. So there's a real bearing of his soul, if you will, even if that's not a supernatural metaphysical soul. And this idea that, you know, the earth and humans do things that are out of our control, and we might have convictions and beliefs, but at the end of the day, we do have to try to find some peace, even with all that chaos and conflict going on around. And we can try to change things, but because we're only individual humans, even those that work in collective with others who are like-minded and see similar desirable outcomes, that we have to accept that not everything we want is going to happen, and there might be terrible things that happen that are very much against our express wishes. And so if we are to stay sane and to make some use or enjoy some semblance of our experiences on our way to either dying or living forever, then we need to be at peace. That's what I took away from it. Now let's look at the actual specific words, which, again, I heard some of them, but others escaped my grasp. And to make sure that they don't escape my eyeballs, let me turn this on. Okay, so hedge every bet, lick every boot, make every appeal, prostrate yourself to the killing machine, despair yourself from its wheels. I would have to point out there is a punctuation mistake here. It should be it's with no apostrophe, but it says it's with an apostrophe. I don't blame Propagandhi or the publisher of the lyric sheet, but yeah, it's a common mistake, and as an editor, I just can't help but notice it. In any case, in quotes, better them than me rolls so seductively off your tongue, your reckoning has begun. In spite of endless war, extinction level events, depredation and plague, every one of your ancestors survived to reproductive age. I did hear that. There's a very scientific, you know, like the idea cosmically, the idea of life, it seems very hard to achieve. The complexity, the molecular complexity, and then every human alive today has an unbroken chain of ancestors going back long before humans, before mammals, before vertebrates, and so on. So the idea of any given one of us being here is exponentially unlikely. The probability that you are even here is next to none. Hey, no pressure, everyone. Hilarious. When shit got dark, I had to face it alone. There'd be no crying for help. It's just how I'm wired. I had to figure shit out my whole life by myself. I ain't saying it's cool, it's fucked up. Truth be told, it's cost me a few friends, but sometimes you must protect yourself. Motherfucker, I'm resourceful, resilient. I power through the waves of disappointment. Maybe not quite thriving, but I'm buoyant. I am at peace these days, give or take a fit of blinding rage. I did hear that clearly, and I love that. Again, like, you gotta find some way, even despite all the setbacks and the brutalities and the conflicts and chaos, to make use of your time, to feel some semblance of peace, even if occasionally you see something in the news or you see some humans act in a certain way where it's like, oh my God, how dare they? That's absolutely unacceptable. I can't seem to shake the belief that there's a liminal state between death and rebirth in which you and me reconvene. Oh yes, I'm really fun at parties. I did not catch that part of it. Oh yes, I'm really fun at parties. Draw a dink on my face with a Sharpie. Dink, we might presume to be some sort of penile shape. Excuse me, sir, this is an Arby's. I'm at peace. I am at peace, though presently convulsed with grief. I am at peace. Some days I'm scared I'm gonna die, or even worse, I might survive. I try to keep these words in mind. Nothing worth having comes without some kind of fight. Gotta kick at the darkness until it bleeds daylight. It's incredible. It's so well written. It's philosophically admirable. It's personally and vulnerably sympathetic. It's inspiring. It's comedic. It's everything I've come to love about Propagandhi, and I absolutely understand sonically and lyrically why this would have been chosen as the title track. It's brilliant. Tell me what you think. I'll see you next time. Peace.